Wellness Crew, and welcome to today's reading of The Gene Keys Golden Path Love, a guide to your Venus sequence. An introduction to the 7-year development cycles of childhood. From this point onwards in your Venus sequence, you will be metaphorically traveling backwards in time through the various developmental phases of your childhood. We humans operate out of 7-year cellular cycles. Even though different cells are renewed at different rates, the majority of the cells inside the human body are replaced every 7 years. This is where your hologenetic profile becomes fascinating, because it gives you archetypal themes for each of the 3 main cycles from the point of your birth to the age of 21. As psychology has long known, our shadow patterns are rooted in our childhood. However, what the Venus sequence also shows us is how they are imprinted in our very DNA before we are even born. Conception, the inheritance of the sacred wound. Few moments in life are more magical than the point of conception. It is worth considering the depth of this moment at the beginning of your life. The sperm from your father and the ovum from your mother fuse together, mixing their respective genetic codes in a cosmic cocktail. This moment of fusion catalyzes the evolution of a new set of patterns that in time becomes you. At the heart of your genesis lies this mysterious process known as the inheritance of the sacred wound. At a cosmic level, the sacred wound is a rent or tear that formed right at the beginning of the universe, during the Big Bang. It is like a black hole of infinite density that can never be filled, and it is holographically encoded in every aspect of the universe. In essence, the sacred wound is the reason for our existence. Life itself is a response to the sacred wound, because as life tries to fill the mystical hole at the heart of creation, so evolution occurs. When you were conceived, you received the living transmission of the sacred wound. Like the oak tree within the acorn, it was passed on through your ancestral DNA and recombined in a unique way to form a series of patterns and pathways that will in time come to define who you are. The Corpus Christi and the incarnation of the Trinity. Behind both the Venus sequence and the Gene Keys lies a mystical body of teachings known as the Corpus Christi. This particular spiritual transmission is described in this 22nd Gene Key, and it concerns the mechanics of the invisible world that lies beyond our ordinary awareness. The Corpus Christi lays out a universe of 7 dimensions, each one holographically folded up inside each other like a series of Russian dolls. These dimensional fields can be seen as 2 pairs of trinities with the 7th dimension enfolding them all. Mystically speaking, the sacred wound occurred when the 3 trinities divided. In a human being, the trinities are described as sheaths or bodies of different frequencies of consciousness. The lower trinity consists of the physical, astral, emotional, and mental bodies, whereas the upper trinity consists of the causal, buddhic, and atmic bodies. The mythical fall of humankind is represented by this fundamental divide in our consciousness. Our lower nature reaches upwards through the current of evolution, and our higher nature reaches down into us through the current of involution. The sacred wound therefore drives us to search for our higher nature by reuniting the trinities and experiencing our full divine consciousness. The 3 trimesters of pregnancy, the unwinding of the wound. The sacred wound imprinting through the 7-year cycle. Core, 9 months gestation. SQ, age 0 to 7, first trimester. EQ, age 8 through 14, second trimester. IQ, age 15 to 21, third trimester. As we incarnate into the physical plane, our separation from wholeness is played out in microcosmic form, even while we are still in the womb. Each of the 3 trimesters of pregnancy relates to a dividing of our wholeness. Thus, our physical body is imprinted with the sacred wound during the first trimester. The astral, emotional body is imprinted in the second trimester, and the mental body is imprinted in the third trimester. The 9 months process of gestation is thus a reenactment of the birth of the cosmos, as the Trinity became imprinted at every level within the holographic universe. This process of the division of our awareness during gestation should in no way be viewed in a negative light. It is the nature and wonder of our incarnative process, as the sacred wound unwinds itself through the DNA helix and creates the future storyline for our search of wholeness. In our hologenetic profile, your imprinting in the womb is represented by the sphere of your core wound, with its specific gene key and line. Birth in the first 7-year cycle, 0 to 7 years. The first 7 years of our life are the foundation stone of who we are. The very moment we emerge from the womb is in itself a separation from wholeness. Thank you so much for the like. For the rest of our lives, we will unconsciously try and reconnect with this deep cellular memory of being unified with our mother. During this first 7-year cellular cycle, our physical body is imprinted with the specific patterns, the sanskaras, that will unconsciously dominate much of our lives. At the shadow frequency, we each have a deep fear pattern that is layered down during this first cycle. Out of this shadow, however, also emerges our SQ, our spiritual quotient. Your SQ is a measure of the level that you allow spiritual intelligence to animate your life. As you embrace the shadow of this gene key, so you unlock the gifts of your SQ, which will in turn guide your life. In your hologenetic profile, your contemplation allows you to reach deeply into these patterns through an understanding of the sphere of your SQ and the pathway of realization. As the deepest level of your Venus sequence, when you awaken your SQ to its full potential, you will experience a complete reawakening of your highest consciousness. The astral body, puberty, and the second 7-year cycle, 8 to 14 years. The second 7-year cycle of our life is the phase in which we move through puberty and develop our primary emotional patterns. In esoteric terms, this phase relates to the full incarnation of our astral body, that aspect of our nature that relates primarily through our emotions and desires. It is during this cycle that our astral sanskaras are imprinted as a series of emotional defense strategies designed to protect our heart from pain. These emotional shadow patterns then follow us into adulthood, where they become ingrained as repeating emotional issues that undermine our relationships. Out of these shadow patterns emerges our EQ, our emotional quotient. Your EQ is a measure of the level of your emotional maturity, that is, your ability to take responsibility for your own shadow patterns and your level of emotional empathy. As you embrace the shadow of the gene key of your EQ, you will find your relationships are gradually transformed. In your hologenetic profile, your contemplation of the sphere of your EQ and the pathway of love can bring about a permanent opening of your heart through an ongoing process of self-forgiveness, leading to an experience of unconditional love. The mental body and the third 7-year cycle, 15 to 21 years. The third 7-year cycle of our life takes us through our teenage years into young adulthood. These are the formative years of our thinking life. In this cycle, we form our primary mental views of life, our opinions, our beliefs, and our basic psychology. Our mental view of the world is founded upon our earlier emotional imprinting in our second 7-year cycle, which in turn is built upon the basic physiological patterns we developed in our first 7-year cycle. Thus, our IQ emerges from our EQ, which is rooted in our SQ. The further we go back, the deeper the roots of our shadows are found. Your IQ is a measure of your mental intelligence, your ability to use both sides of your brain, and to think with flexibility and vision. At the same time, the shadow of the gene key relating to your IQ gives rise to unconscious mental patterns and views rooted in a lack of self-worth. As you dismantle the patterns of the shadow in your own mind, so you will find that the communication in all your relationships becomes much easier and clearer. In your hologenetic profile, your contemplation of the sphere of your IQ and the pathway of intelligence will catalyze a process in which your mind opens up to a whole new level of insight and living wisdom. So this was a lot of information to process, so I'm going to go ahead and stop right here. But thank you so much for joining me for this reading. As I have said before, I just find that the gene keys and human design has been so helpful to me, and I really hope that it becomes helpful to you as well. Please don't forget to like, subscribe, and or join as it is popping off at the other tiers, and I'll see you on the next live stream. Be well, stay wild as well.